traumatic, and it was a tough call when I got it this morning to know that, especially it's just someone so young.
Some stories don't begin with a scream or a struggle. They begin with a small sentence that no one takes seriously. I'm going to run away. It sounds harmless, almost playful. The kind of thing a child says when they're upset, knowing they'll be back before dinner. That's why no one panicked. That's why no one stopped her. And that's why, hours later, an ordinary day in a quiet town turned into a nightmare that would last for decades. What happens when a child vanishes without a trace? No witnesses, no evidence, no body, just silence. For years, families live suspended between hope and grief, asking the same questions over and over again. Did she get lost? Was she taken? Is she still alive somewhere? And the most terrifying question of all, was the danger much closer than anyone realized? This is not just the story of a missing child. It's the story of time working against justice, and eventually, for it. Because sometimes, the truth doesn't surface in days, months, or even years. Sometimes it waits decades, hiding behind unsolved files, forgotten suspects, and secrets buried so deep they were meant to stay there forever. But when the past finally catches up, it doesn't knock gently. It crashes through everything. And once you hear what really happened, you'll understand why some cases never truly go cold. On the morning of November 10th, 1980, Weaverville was doing what it always did, moving slowly, predictably, like a town that believed nothing truly bad could happen inside its borders. Nestled in Northern California and surrounded by thick forests and mountains, it was the kind of place where people knew each other by name, where doors were rarely locked, and where children roamed freely without fear. That morning, 7-year-old Donna Fowler woke up expecting to go to school. She loved school, loved the routine, loved being around people. But something small went wrong. Lice. Her mother told her she'd have to stay home that day. For a child like Donna, it felt devastating. She protested, pouted, and finally said the words she'd said many times before. "If I can't go to school, I'm going to run away." It wasn't a threat, it was a performance. Donna had said it before, and every time she did, she came back within hours, hungry and smiling, ready to pretend it never happened. Her father humored her, just as he always had. He helped her pack a tiny bag, some snacks, a book, a teddy bear. It was a game, a ritual. No one believed it would end differently this time. Donna walked out of the house with her backpack. That was the last time her family ever saw her. At first, no one panicked. They assumed she'd gone to a friend's house, wandered to the museum she loved, or was playing somewhere nearby. Hours passed. The daylight faded. As evening set in, the realization became impossible to ignore. Donna wasn't coming home. At around 7 p.m., her mother called the sheriff's department to report her missing. The response was immediate but cautious. Children wandered off sometimes. Small towns ran on hope before fear. Deputies began knocking on doors, asking neighbors if they'd seen a little girl with rosy cheeks and a backpack. No one had. The search began that night, but darkness limited what could be done. Officers checked nearby buildings, creeks, blackberry bushes, and fields. There were no footprints, no tire tracks, no sign of a struggle, nothing to suggest a crime had even occurred. By morning, Weaverville had transformed. Volunteers poured in. Firefighters, search and rescue teams, neighbors. Parents who couldn't imagine the unthinkable, but felt it pressing closer with every passing hour. Helicopters flew low over the forest. Tracking dogs followed a faint scent trail from Donna's home toward a nearby creek, then lost it completely. The creek was swollen from recent rain. For a moment, investigators feared the worst. A fall, fast-moving water, an accident no one could undo. But searches along the creek turned up nothing. No clothing, no backpack, no trace. As days passed, tips flooded in. Too many. Some claimed they'd seen Donna riding on a motorcycle. Others swore they saw her in a grocery store miles away. One person insisted she'd been spotted sitting in a brown car near an old market. None of it held up. Inside the Fowler family home, grief and guilt began to settle in. Donna's father blamed himself for helping her pack the bag. Her relatives replayed every moment, every decision, every missed chance to stop her. the house filled with questions that had no answers. And slowly, a darker possibility crept into conversations no one wanted to have. What if Donna hadn't run away? What if she'd gone with someone? Weaverville was small, but it wasn't isolated. Strangers passed through. People knew each other, but not completely. And children, especially trusting ones like Donna, didn't always understand danger. Detectives began quietly looking closer at the people around her. Friends of the family, neighbors, anyone who had access, anyone who seemed just a little too defensive, a little too angry about being questioned. One name began to stand out: Wayne Harvey Smith. He was in his 30s, an ex-con, known to law enforcement. But more importantly, he was close to the Fowler family. He spent time at their home, borrowed the family car, had children of his own. On the surface, he didn't fit the image of a monster. When questioned, Smith bristled. He refused to cooperate fully. He accused police of targeting him because of his past. His attitude raised red flags, but suspicion wasn't evidence. And in a case with no body and no proof a crime had even happened, detectives were powerless. Even worse, some members of Donna's family defended him. They didn't want to believe that someone they trusted could be involved. They wanted to believe Donna was still alive. Lost, maybe, but alive. Weeks turned into months. Searches slowed. Volunteers went home. Life in Weaverville tried to return to normal, but something had permanently shifted. Parents kept their children closer. The streets grew quieter. The town carried a question it couldn't shake. Where is Donna Fowler? As the years passed, hope and grief twisted together. Donna's grandparents believed until the end that she might come back. That one day she'd walk through the door, older, but alive. Others feared the truth was far darker. By 1983, the case was officially labelled cold. But cold didn't mean forgotten. It meant waiting. Waiting for time to reveal what people couldn't. Waiting for a mistake. Waiting for another crime that might finally connect the dots. Because somewhere out there, the truth still existed, and it wasn't finished yet. As the years passed, Donna Fowler's name never left Weaverville, but it slowly slipped from the headlines. New families moved in. Children who once searched the woods grew up and left town. Yet for those who had known Donna, time didn't heal anything. It only sharpened the absence. Inside the sheriff's department, the case stayed alive in a quieter way. Detectives kept the file close, revisiting it when new ideas surfaced, replaying the same unanswered questions. The biggest one never changed. If Donna didn't wander off, what stopped her? From the beginning, investigators had struggled with a brutal reality. There was no proof a crime had occurred. No blood, no witnesses, no body. Without that, every theory was fragile. But patterns in missing child cases told a different story. 7-year-olds didn't simply vanish without leaving something behind. Donna knew the town. She knew where she was allowed to go. And the places she loved, the museum, friends' houses, familiar yards, had all been searched repeatedly. That narrowed the possibilities. Either Donna had been taken, or she had gone somewhere she trusted. Wayne Harvey Smith remained a name that refused to fade. He was a familiar presence in Donna's life. He spent time around the Fowler home. He had access. He had opportunities. And he had a criminal past that made detectives uneasy, even if they couldn't legally act on it. One incident in particular stood out. A man came forward claiming he'd once seen Wayne Smith and Donna together in the attic of a barn. He couldn't say exactly what was happening, only that it didn't feel right. When questioned, Smith dismissed the story entirely. He said Donna had been helping him fix a television antenna. There was no way to prove otherwise. Smith's hostility toward police only deepened suspicions. He refused interviews, accused investigators of harassment, claimed they were focusing on him because of his record, not evidence. But again, suspicion wasn't enough. And then, quietly, Smith left town. When investigators learned he'd moved away, frustration set in. They had no grounds to stop him. No charges, no leverage. He walked away from Weaverville, taking unanswered questions with him. For Donna's family, it felt like a door slamming shut. Her grandfather carried the guilt heavily. He had helped her pack the bag. He had laughed when she said she'd run away. That moment replayed in his mind for the rest of his life. Relatives described him slowly withdrawing, convinced he'd failed her. Years turned into decades. Donna's case was officially cold, but it remained emotionally hot for those who remembered her. Every tip, every rumor reignited hope and disappointment. Searches were proposed, abandoned, proposed again. Wells, fields, old structures. Nothing ever came of it. Then, hundreds of miles away, something happened that would change everything. In 1983, in Rowland Heights, California, an 18-year-old woman named Stacy Belchure disappeared. She left her motel room to get food and never returned. Her car was found days later. Inside the back seat, her body lay covered with blankets. She had been shot multiple times. The case stalled quickly. There were no solid suspects, no clear motive, just another young life erased without explanation. 2 years later, in the same area, another woman was murdered, this time in a donut shop. She'd been stabbed repeatedly. Blood trailed through the scene. Investigators determined the killer had injured himself during the attack. The stalker's name, according to co-workers? Wayne. When Los Angeles detectives began digging into Wayne Harvey Smith, they found a history that matched their fears. He lived nearby. He had a criminal record. And when they questioned him, they noticed fresh injuries on his hands. This time, there was evidence. Blood at the crime scene matched his type. Inconsistencies in his story piled up. Smith was arrested, tried, and convicted of murder. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. 600 miles north, in Weaverville, the news hit like a shockwave. Detectives there received a call from Los Angeles County. They were asking about Wayne Harvey Smith. The same man, the same name, the same uneasy feeling they'd carried for years. Suddenly, Donna Fowler's disappearance no longer stood alone. It was part of a pattern. For the first time in decades, investigators felt something they hadn't allowed themselves to feel in a long time. Momentum. But proving what happened to Donna was still another battle entirely. One that would require time, technology, and a decision that would haunt two families forever. Because Wayne Harvey Smith wasn't finished talking. And the truth he carried was darker than anyone had imagined. Even with Wayne Harvey Smith behind bars, Donna Fowler's case was still painfully incomplete. A conviction in California did not automatically mean justice in Weaverville. There was still no physical proof that Donna was dead. No remains, no crime scene. And without that, prosecutors in Trinity County had nothing solid to charge him with. For years, the case sat in that uncomfortable space between certainty and proof. Then technology caught up with the past. In the early 2000s, California began re-examining old, unsolved cases using advances in forensic science. Evidence once considered useless was pulled from storage. Blood samples, trace materials, items that had waited decades for science to be ready. That's when Stacy Belchure's case cracked wide open. DNA recovered from the crime scene, evidence that couldn't be fully analyzed in the 1980s, was finally processed and entered into the statewide database. The result was immediate and devastating. Wayne Harvey Smith was a match. For Stacy's family, the phone call came after more than 20 years of unanswered questions. Shock mixed with relief. The man responsible had been in prison all along, but now there was proof. Real, scientific proof. The kind that could never be argued away. Prosecutors moved quickly. Wayne Smith was charged with Stacy Belchure's murder. This time, the stakes were higher than ever. Because of the brutality of the crime and the new DNA evidence, the death penalty was back on the table. For Smith, it was the first time in decades that fear entered the equation. And that fear changed everything. While preparing for trial, Stacy's family learned something that would alter the course of two cases forever. Wayne Smith wasn't just a convicted murderer. He was also the prime suspect in the disappearance of a 7-year-old girl named Donna Fowler. They read about Donna, about the backpack, about the small town, about the family that never stopped waiting. And suddenly, the fight wasn't just about Stacy anymore. Stacy's family approached prosecutors with an extraordinary request. If Wayne Smith would tell the truth about what happened to Donna Fowler, if he would finally reveal where her body was, They were willing to remove the death penalty from the table. It wasn't forgiveness. It was compassion for another family trapped in the same endless limbo they had lived in for decades. The decision wasn't easy. It meant giving up the harshest punishment available under the law. But in exchange, two families might finally get answers. The district attorney agreed. Smith accepted the deal. After more than 20 years of silence, Wayne Harvey Smith agreed to talk. Detectives from Trinity County traveled to Los Angeles to interview him. This time, there was no yelling, no denial, no refusal to cooperate. Just a man who knew the clock had finally run out. Smith told them Donna came to his house that day. He said she wouldn't leave when asked, that he was already angry, frustrated with his life, his failures, his lack of control. He claimed he grabbed her in a moment of rage. Donna was 7 years old. Smith denied sexually assaulting her, though investigators had long suspected it. What he did admit was worse than many had imagined. He said Donna died in his basement. Afterward, he placed her small body into trash bags. He borrowed her grandfather's car, and he drove her to the county dump. At the time, the dump was an open pit, a place where trash was burned and buried regularly. Over the years, it had been filled, layered, and covered by massive amounts of earth. More than 40 feet of dirt now sat on top of where Donna's body had been discarded. There would be no recovery, no remains, no burial, just the truth. For Donna's family, the confession was devastating, but it ended decades of uncertainty. They no longer had to imagine endless possibilities, no longer had to wonder if she was still out there somewhere. The worst had happened, and now they finally knew. Wayne Harvey Smith avoided the death penalty. In return, he received multiple life sentences with no possibility of parole. He would never walk free again. But justice, in cases like this, is never clean. There were no remains to bring home, no grave to visit, no final goodbye. Only answers. And for families who have waited a lifetime, sometimes answers are all that's left. But the story doesn't end with the confession, because what this case revealed about missed warning signs, about how predators hide in plain sight, and about how long justice can take, forces one final, haunting question. Could this have been stopped sooner? And if someone had listened, how many lives might have been saved? The truth came far too late, but it finally came. Donna Fowler didn't run away. She didn't get lost. She didn't vanish into the wilderness. She was taken by someone her family trusted, silenced in a moment of rage, and discarded as if her life meant nothing. For nearly 3 decades, her family lived inside a question mark, never knowing whether to grieve or hope. Wayne Harvey Smith's confession closed the case, but it could never erase the years stolen from those who loved her. There was no body to bury, no grave to visit, just the knowledge that Donna's life ended before it ever truly began. She never grew up, never went to high school, never fell in love. Those milestones were taken from her the day she walked out the door with a backpack and a child's belief that she would come home. What makes this story even harder to accept is how long the warning signs went unheeded. The discomfort, the suspicions, the quiet red flags that, at the time, couldn't be proven. This case is a reminder that predators don't always look dangerous. Sometimes they are neighbors, friends, people welcomed into homes.